folks, first off, I want to say I'm sorry for the delay. The delay is as a result of this is an active and ongoing investigation. We're working diligently to provide all of you with as much information as we possibly can under the circumstances and verify that information. So we had to spend a little extra time putting that information together. As a result of that, we're behind schedule. I'm sure that people appreciate how difficult this is and the fact that us taking a little extra time under the circumstances is probably worthwhile. Okay? I'm going to let my staff member set up the PowerPoint presentation or the visuals that we have, and then we'll come back in and we'll go from there. Okay? I'm going to need you to move over there. Okay? Start our Facebook Live here. We're starting now. It takes a minute to thank you. If the rest of you need to start or you're not ready, this is the time to get ready. Okay? Sam, you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
You watching earlier?
No.
I've been live for about an hour.
Oh, have you? No, I have not been watching. We've been doing other stuff. Exactly.
Good.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
All right, you good?
Good to go?
Hold on a second.
Everybody else good? Good? Okay. Yep. Are we up and running? Yes, we are? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, now that we are up and running on our Facebook feed, we're going to start our press conference. My name is Corey Honey, and I'm the Sheriff of Butte County. I'm going to reiterate my apologies for the delayed start of our press conference. The purpose or the reason for that delayed start is that this is an active, ongoing investigation. We are working diligently to gather as much information as we possibly can so that we can provide it to you and the members of our community. With that, though, requires us to sometimes check and recheck things. Our hope is to provide you with the best possible and most accurate information that we have available. That said, as I always say on any of my press conferences, the information that we're giving you today, again, is a product of our absolute best effort to date. Recognize that investigations are dynamic, they're complex, and it is possible that we will find additional information that changes the context of the information we're providing you today, or we might find additional information that results in us believing the information we provided today wasn't completely accurate. That is not intentional. That's just the nature of the way these things go. We're here this afternoon to provide all of you with an update on the Feather River School of the Seventh-day Adventist shooting, which occurred yesterday afternoon. Today, you're going to hear from me, of course, then our commissioner from CHP, Sean Dury, Special Agent in Charge, Sid Patel, Butte County District Attorney Mike Ramsey, and Lori Trujillo, the Director of Communications and Development for Northern California Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And I apologize that the PowerPoint isn't displaying exactly the way it should be, but we'll get through this. I'm going to start by providing you with a review of the events of yesterday. Then we're going to talk about the victims in this case. Then we're going to talk about the suspect in this case and provide you some information about who he was, and perhaps some insight into his motivation for perpetrating this horrific act. So, to recap yesterday's events, at 1:08 p.m., an initial call, 911 call that is, was made, and it was received by the California Highway Patrol. The caller was from the school, reporting that there was an active shooter on campus. The CHP dispatched one of their officers and simultaneously transferred that call over to the Butte County Sheriff's Office because we're the law enforcement agency with primary jurisdiction there. And I'll have the commissioner come up after I'm done talking, and he can provide some additional clarification about CHP's response. As I said, the call came in at 1:08. At 1:09 p.m., BCSO Dispatch Center received the call from CHP. They immediately dispatched every available deputy sheriff in Butte County, including deputies from North County. In addition to that, as is the protocol and the practice, law enforcement here in Butte County, consistent with our training, when there is an active shooter incident, it is an all-response situation, and we received responses and support from other allied law enforcement agencies, including the local police departments as well as state agencies, such as Fish and Wildlife, the CAL FIRE law enforcement officers, and of course, California Highway Patrol. At 1:10 p.m., 2 minutes after the original call, the first CHP officer arrives on scene. He is directed to the area where the suspect is located down on the ground from what appeared to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That officer immediately secured the firearm, which was laying next to the individual. At 1:14 p.m., Butte County Sheriff's deputies arrived on scene, and at that point, deputies and CHP officers immediately began rendering aid to 2 students who sustained gunshot wounds. In addition to that, the officers began to search the remainder of the campus to make sure that there were no other attackers or assailants, and make plans to keep the kids and the faculty members safe. Once they determined that there were no additional suspects, all of the students were eventually gathered and moved to the school's gymnasium, where they were protected until we were able to move them from that campus. At 1:30 p.m., school bus was dispatched to the school. The 35 or so students who were in attendance at the school that day were loaded on the school bus, and they were taken to the Church of the Nazarene, which is what we set up as our family reunification site. This is just a representation of all of the law enforcement agencies that have brought resources to bear to help out with this particular thing. It's probably not an all-inclusive list, but I did want make note of the fact that we are receiving tremendous support from federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. When the bus arrived at the Nazarene Church, we had BCSO personnel present, along with crisis counselors from our behavioral health department, along with chaplains from our law enforcement program. And they immediately began a process of reunifying the students with their parents. And I am told that reunification process went very smoothly. It went as well as it could go, given the horrific and tragic circumstances that we were dealing with. And I want to specifically comment and thank all of the first responders, the crisis folks who were there to support the students and the family. But I also want to acknowledge the parents and the family members who, when they arrived, recognized that the best thing to do under those circumstances was to work with us so that we could have an orderly reunification. And I appreciate their efforts in that regard. Today, I am going to provide you with information about the two boys who sustained gunshot wounds during this incident. The first young man, Roman Mendez. Roman is 6 years old, and he is in kindergarten at the school. Roman sustained 2 gunshot wounds resulting in internal injuries. The other child that was seriously injured during the course of this, thank you very much. And I'm going to work hard to pronounce this correctly because it's Elias. Elias, thank you very much. It's pronounced Elias Wolford. He is 5 years old. He is also in kindergarten. He was shot one time in the abdomen, which resulted in internal injuries. Our district attorney, Mike Ramsey, and I traveled down to the hospital where these young men are being treated. They were immediately transported to trauma center and had an opportunity to sit down and speak with the parents of the 2 boys. Of course, we expressed our heartfelt sympathies under the circumstances. But one of the things that we learned from the physicians is that the boys are both in critical condition. They have a very long road ahead of them in terms of recovery. It's very likely that they are going to have a number of surgeries as going forward. But the fact that they are currently still with us, I think, is a miracle and something that we should all be very thankful for. I'd also like to ask everybody, members of the community as well as the media, to respect the privacy of the family members. Both families talked about how they are focusing on the recovery of their children. That's the most important thing to them, and we can all understand that. But there have been attempts by members of the media to contact them. Please recognize that the most important thing for them now is to make sure that their children are being taken care of. And so I would ask on their behalf, based on what they told me, is that you respect their privacy and do not make an effort to contact the parents. In addition to that, I have received some information that Monday night at 5:30 p.m. at the Southside Community Center here in Oroville, there is going to be a fundraising event that is being organized by local churches and community leaders. And the fundraiser is to benefit both of these boys and help their families as they deal with the expenses that's definitely going to be incurred during the course of that. Now, I think it's very important that we always keep in the forefront of our mind that the people that truly matter during the course of this investigation are the victims. And I certainly don't want them to be lost in the overall story. With that said, I am prepared to provide you some information today about the suspect in this case. So, we have identified the individual responsible for the shooting as a subject named Glenn Litton. He is 56 years old. He most recently, I think, is best described as being homeless, and he spends time between Sacramento and the Chico area. He has a lengthy criminal history and history of mental health issues. His first prison sentence was in 1991 for theft. Several other convictions for various crimes to include theft, fraud, forgery in the 90s and early 2000s. I am going to have our representative from the FBI, Special in Charge Patel, talk about his criminal history or his involvement in crime at the federal level. And I'm going to have our district attorney, Mike Ramsey, come up after I'm done and talk about his criminal cases here in Butte County, which were some 20 years ago. The Butte County Sheriff's Office has not had any contact with Litton since Litton was booked into the Butte County Jail for forgery and fraud charges in 2003. So it's been, again, over 20 years since he's been booked into the Butte County Jail. But he has been involved in other criminal matters in other parts of the state. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So, our most recent law enforcement contacts. In March of 24, Litton was the suspect in a theft of approximately $1,166 in Phoenix, Arizona. He apparently had gotten a job with CVS, and on the second day of his employment, the manager reported that he stole the money from the cash register. On November 12th of 2024, Litton was listed as a suspect in a Chico PD case. It was reported to the Chico Police Department that Litton rented a white Chevrolet Silverado 1500 U-Haul, one of the U-Haul pickups, and did not return it when he was supposed to return it, so U-Haul reported it stolen. The Chico Police Department attempted to contact Litton, but they were unable to contact him. And a GPS tracker on the truck showed that the truck left the Chico area and headed towards San Francisco at the time, or shortly after, at the time that the vehicle was stolen. On November 12th, 2024, Litton was arrested by the South San Francisco Police Department for being in the stolen U-Haul pickup, or the U-Haul pickup that hadn't been returned as it should have been. And in addition to that, he was in possession of a forged license, so he was arrested on fresh charges of being in possession of the forged or false identification, as well as an outstanding warrant out of the San Bernardino County courts for burglary. He was booked into the San Mateo County Jail. During a search of Litton's person when he was arrested, that forged driver's license was located. And interestingly enough, it had the name Michael Sanders on it and a photograph of Litton. And then it was at that point that Litton was transported to San Mateo County Jail. That's significant because later on he utilizes that same name to make appointments to visit the schools, and I'll talk about that shortly. On 11/20, he was transported from the San Mateo County Jail to the San Bernardino County Jail and booked on the warrant for burglary. On 11/21/24, he had his first court appearance. He had pled not guilty and was released by the court on his own recognizance. He was then picked up by a family member and transported back to Sacramento. From Sacramento, my understanding is that he took a bus to the Chico area. And while in the Chico area, he stayed a couple of nights at various motels within the Chico area. The timeline for his movements on 12/4. So in the early morning hours, we've determined that he was in the vicinity of Motel 6 in Chico. At around 7:45 in the morning, he got onto a beeline bus at 2nd and Salem in Chico. And at 8:30 hours, he arrived in Oroville and exited the bus at Montgomery and Meyer Street in Oroville. At that time, he was carrying a large duffel bag. At 10:46 hours, Litton was at the Rayleigh's in Oroville. He purchased an energy drink and checked out the store until about 10:56 hours. At 11:38 hours, he requested an Uber, and he used the alias Mark Hansen. At 11:57 hours, the Uber transported him, or arrived the Uber arrived at the bus stop on Spencer Avenue near Rayleigh's to pick him up. He had booked the ride to go out to the Feather River Seventh-day Adventist School located on Highway 70 in Cox. And the Uber driver dropped him off at that location at about 12:11 p.m. Now, I told you yesterday, and I'll reiterate today, that a couple of days prior to this, Litton had called the school and made an appointment to speak to an administrator about the possibility of him enrolling his grandson in the school. He booked that appointment utilizing the name Michael Sanders, which was the name on the fictitious driver's license that he had. The school set the appointment. When he showed up, he met with the school's principal. And as I said yesterday, it was a cordial conversation. The conversation centered around what it would take for him to enroll his grandson in the school. His story was that his daughter had recently moved to Gridley and that he wanted his grandson to go to that school, and he was willing to pay for the tuition. As it turns out, that was all a lie. His daughter had not moved to Gridley, and he did not have a grandson. So it appears to us that that story was a ruse to set up an appointment so that he could gain access to the campus. After the tour and after the meeting with the principal, he got up, and it appeared that he was going to leave. He started to walk back towards the parking lot, and this is him right here. In the first photograph, you see him walking one direction. Almost instantly, he makes a turn and starts to turn and walk back through the breezeway that leads to the playground. And the children at the school were finishing up their noon break and were in the process of heading back to the classroom. Note that he has his hand inside his jacket near his waistband. We believe that is where he was concealing the firearm. After that, he pulls the firearm and initiates his attack. That's when the two boys that we have talked about earlier were shot. The school principal reported that she heard a loud noise, which we believe to be gunshots, and then the children screaming. She immediately came out, found the kids, and began rendering aid. We have we've been working diligently to try to determine what the motives for this attack were. And yesterday I talked with you about the fact that we have received information that led us to believe that he targeted this school because of its affiliation with the Seventh-day Adventist church. There's written information that we received that we believe that came from him, and the information that I think is most probative to why he chose this school is this statement right here. And it reads, "Countermeasures involving child executions has now been imposed at the Seventh-day Adventist School in California, United States, by the International Alliance. I, Lieutenant Glenn Litton of the Alliance, carried out countermeasures in necessitated response to America's involvement in genocide and oppression of Palestinians, along with attacks towards Yemen." Now, I will tell you that we have been working diligently to try to determine if there is, in fact, an international alliance, and if one of their stated purposes is to engage in terrorist acts of this nature. I can tell you at this particular point, and we've been working not only local law enforcement, but federal law enforcement, FBI, Homeland Security, to try to determine if there is, in fact, an international alliance. At this point, we have not been able to find any organization that calls themselves the International Alliance and that is active in this regard. And in terms of him saying that he's a lieutenant in this, there's nothing, we've found no information that would lead us to believe that this organization has some kind of military or paramilitary structure. I would go back to, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time speculating that, but recognize that this individual did have some significant mental health issues, and it appears that he pulled information from various sources, and it all came together in his mind to form a reality that perhaps his faults are different than ours, of course. But that is we believe, is the stated motivation for this. I will tell you that we are going to continue to probe this and work this. And if there is any indication whatsoever that there is, in fact, some kind of international alliance that poses a threat, that will be followed up, and we'll make that information known. Again, that is one of the reasons that we believe that this was an isolated incident, or he was a sole individual who targeted this school based on the beliefs that he held, and how he came to believe those things, I can't say. Now, we've also determined that there was an alternative target. Next slide. It appears as though Mr. Litton also researched the Seventh-day Adventist school in Red Bluff, California, and he looked at information concerning both the Red Bluff location as well as the location out on Highway 70. But ultimately, it appears that he selected the location on Highway 70 as the target. I think it's also kind of important to note that we determined that Mr. Litton attended the Paradise Seventh-day Adventist School when he was a young man. So it had been many, many, many years. And he may have had a relative attend the school that he ultimately went to and committed the shooting, but that would have been many, many years ago. And so there is no current connection between Mr. Litton, at least no current connection that we can determine, between Mr. Litton and the school that he went to perpetrate this horrible act of violence. It appears, again, that it's based on his notion about, the activities of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and why he selected that. So, I now would like to bring up Commissioner Dury to talk about the CHP's involvement, what they're doing with it to work with us, followed by Special Agent in Charge Sid Patel, Butte County District Attorney Mike Ramsey, and Lori Trujillo from the Seventh-day Adventists. After that, I will come back up and we can field some questions if necessary. Commissioner?
Thanks, Sheriff. My name is Sean Dury. I'm the Commissioner of the CHP. Let me start by saying thank you and commending the Butte County Sheriff's Office, especially Sheriff Honey and the leadership as he's guiding us through this tragedy. The work that the Butte County Sheriff's Department and the FBI have done in the last 24 hours is impressive. And I say thank you as a member of the community, and we commend you for that. Today, Californians throughout the state are grieving alongside the community of Oroville and the people of Butte County as we try to make sense and work our way through this unimaginable tragedy. Our focus, our hearts, and our attention remains with Elias and Roman as these two young men fight for their lives. Yesterday, I want to acknowledge and just express how proud I am of the CHP responders and the other first responders. The sheriff mentioned that at 1:08, the initial call went into CHP dispatch. At 1:09 was the first time that our beat officers heard that call broadcasted on the radio. The officer that was first on scene was a CHP officer. He was about a mile and a half away. On his beat, working traffic. He was shooting radar and working speed out on Highway 70. He responded and got there in about 90 seconds. Deployed in line with the training that he receives, that every CHP officer receives. And I would just point out every police officer in California receives that training. That training is to go towards the threat, go towards danger, and to stop the threat. And then they immediately transition to providing aid. And that's exactly what this officer did. He responded on scene. He found a gate that he was able to maneuver himself through. He located the suspect after he was pointed that direction from school personnel. He found the suspect, secured the weapon, made it safe, handcuffed the suspect, immediately went back to his patrol car, retrieved medical equipment, and I believe that the CHP officer and the sheriff's deputies that arrived on scene did everything they could to provide medical aid and likely saved those lives of those young men. So, with that, I just want to say thank you to them. I know how first responders came together yesterday is a good example of how the community is going to come together and how we're going to get through this. So, thank you.